You don't need to be a world leader to make a difference in history. Sometimes the game changers aren't the emperors, presidents, kings, queens, and other authority. It's the people around them. This is where the ever-mythical spiritual advisor of the Romanovs, Grigori Rasputin, comes to play. He was said to be many things: a mad monk, the Antichrist, a sexual deviant, a drunk, and many others. Many people have talked about him in a negative light, mostly as if they're telling a ghost story. This is understandable though, as the man's been surrounded by rumors and different takes. Rasputin was controversial to say the least, and at most, immortal. Let's take a look at the man they called the Mad Monk, Grigori Rasputin, his early life, the time when he was in royalty, and the circumstances that led up to his incredibly brutal death. In Pokrovskoye, Siberia, Russia, 1869, there was a boy born into the world, and they named him Grigori Efimovich Rasputin. There are so many stories in regards to his childhood, and once again, it's pretty hard to prove. One account stated that he had mystical powers. Another would say that he was pretty violent and ended up in a lot of debauchery in the small town. History is pretty tricky here. It was rural Russia in the 1800s after all, which wasn't the place to be if you like reading and penning down events. What is true, however, is during Rasputin's time in the quaint little town, he got himself a wife and kids, like any normal citizen during the era. What he did after though, well, it's still a pretty normal thing to do in any era, depending on what your definition of normal is. He ran off all so suddenly, leaving his wife and kids. Some say it was because of a crime he did, and others would say it was due to a sudden spiritual awakening. Whatever it was though, it led Grigori to a pilgrimage in 1897 that changed his life forever. After visiting the St. Nicholas Monastery, he started doing long pilgrimages, all the way to Greece even. This would make him somewhat known to many outside the Russian capital, like a prominent spiritual figure akin to an Old Testament prophet. Not a monk though, since he never really did all the monk stuff. Rasputin had a very calming presence about him by this time. Some would even consider it hypnotic. Others would call it black magic and all that jazz. Either way, this would be the main weapon for him to enter into Russian high society. Due to him charming the right people, the Mad Monk would find his way into the arms of the Tsar and Tsarina. This sparked a relationship with the Romanovs that led to events that would help the Russian people bring down the empire and affect the country even after all their deaths. The other key for Grigori Boy to charm the Romanovs was their son Alexei. The child was born with hemophilia, a disease that prevented his blood from clotting and could even possibly kill him. This caused massive stress for the mother, Tsarina Alexandra, and this is where Rasputin stepped in. He claimed to be able to cure the kid's problem through faith healing and prayer. When there was no internet to make fun of faith healers, they seemed more effective. Rasputin's calming presence helped Alexei in a way as the symptoms were actually slowing down due to his intervention. This was due to the boy calming down and thrashing less, so the bleeding wouldn't be as prominent. Also, Rasputin shooing away the doctors actually helped, since it was reported that they'd give the kid aspirin, which we now know thins the blood. And, you know, no clotting, and thin blood just makes it worse. This convinced the Romanov family to keep the guy around. I mean, if your sick son looks less sick when hanging out with a shady old monk, keep at it. After all of this, Tsarina Alexandra was pretty much attached to Rasputin, with her saying that she can hear God's words through him. This spun up the rumor mill, either by the Russian people or Tsar Nicholas's political enemies, in which Rasputin was the lover of the Russian queen. This only scratches the surface in the rumor mill that was pinning a lot of things on Rasputin. The Russian people called Rasputin the real force that controlled their country, and called him a sex-crazed maniac. Well, the latter rumor existed way before he went into power, but it was still used against him, along with many more rumors. Black magic, Antichrist, drunkard, everything was tossed against Grigori and his beard. The first attempt of Rasputin's life was during a time where he was traveling to the post office until he was approached by a beggar, or at least what he thought was one, Surprise! You get a stab wound, Grigori! This cut him up pretty bad and apparently exposed his insides, but he managed to get it treated. It took weeks for Rasputin to recover, but he did. This just added more to the rumor mill. The lady who stabbed him considered the guy to be the Antichrist and therefore did what she did. They threw him in the mental asylum and wasn't held responsible for her actions. The increasing social unrest in Russia got amplified by the fact that the First World War broke out, and that wasn't the only threat to the empire. Political enemies left and right wanted to find a way to get rid of Rasputin, along with the Romanovs. Even after surviving a nasty stab wound, the Mad Monk's life was still in danger. One day, in December 1916, he was invited by the Tsar's nephew in marriage, Prince Felix Yusupov, into his house. This was lined with a sweetener, as the prince claimed his wife was a nymphomaniac, hoping this would be the perfect lure. Grigori Rasputin stands in front of the courtyard of the Yusupov's house, and this would be the first step of his long death. We'll of course discuss how he died and the consequences of his death in a part 2 video. If you guys want to see more of our content, humor us and check out the channel. Leave a comment or two on how you feel about the video, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.